TJ Watt making the call to his big brother JJ. Come to Pittsburgh. Come to Pittsburgh. All right, we'll see if that's what happens. What we're going to do in this segment, Myles Simmons is going to join us, and here he is. Charean Williams, Myles, and I are going to have a draft, kind of an impromptu, let's figure out the possible destinations for J.J. Watt. Myles, I'll let you go first, Charean second, me third. Let's jump right into it. First pick by you, most likely destination, best destination. Let's just say best destination, not most likely, but best destination for J.J. Watt.
Well, I love that you came to me first because you made it pretty easy for me, especially coming off of that TJ Watt gif. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think that it makes a lot of sense for him to go to Pittsburgh to play with both of his brothers. Look, the Watts seem to be very tight-knit as a family. And I think coming off of the year that he had, coming off of what everything is right now, where you don't necessarily know what the salary cap is going to be for this year at this point, maybe he takes a little bit of a depressed salary to go to Pittsburgh, says, oh, look, I'm going to have the year of my life when I'm playing with my brothers, and I'm going to bet on myself that I'm going to play really well. And then maybe next year when the salary cap is more at a level where we think it is, because we're not necessarily in a pandemic, then I'm going to get more money again. So I think that he could do a lot of good things in Pittsburgh if he goes there. Maybe not the best chance to win, but playing with your brothers is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I think it would make a lot of sense for him.
Myles, if I could, I would go Pittsburgh with my first, Pittsburgh with my second, and Pittsburgh with my third, because I think that's where he ends up. As I tweeted earlier today, I think he wants to play with his brothers. Blood is thicker than Gatorade, maybe. I was trying to think of a cute little folksy saying there, but whatever it is, I think he's going to end up playing at least 1 year with his brother. And like they think that they can win anywhere. But since you've picked Pittsburgh, Myles, I'm going to go with the Packers. And that makes sense, too, because it's 133 miles from his hometown to Green Bay, where he could play for the Packers. He played at Wisconsin. He would have an immediate chance to win, something we know he wants to do and hasn't done a lot of at Houston. He's played in 8 postseason games, went 3-5, never passed the divisional round. And guess what? They could use another pass rusher. That makes a lot of sense to me, Mike, that he would go to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, and those would be my first 2 picks. I just want to say one thing about the Steelers, because the cap is going to be an issue. It does feel inevitable that we'll see J.J. Watt in black and gold, and it seems natural that he'd be in that uniform. It's so jarring at times to see a player who leaves one team, goes to another, and you see him in that new uniform, and you're like, something's not right here. I remember the first moment we actually saw Tom Brady in Buccaneers colors, and even though I knew for months we were going to see it, my brain didn't want to process it. I can see J.J. Watt in that black helmet with the logo on one side and just fitting right into what the Steelers do and what they are. I worry about the salary cap. TJ Watt's status is not cemented long-term there. And there was a weird report a couple of weeks ago, although it was debunked by folks in Pittsburgh, that TJ was upset about something at the end of the season and skipped out on something, although my understanding is that was an incorrect report. It just makes you wonder, is there frustration there that he hasn't gotten his contract yet? He's put 4 seasons in and has yet to be paid by the Pittsburgh Steelers. But when they got Derek, the fullback, last year, I thought they're thinking ahead to the possibility that J.J. is going to be available. And so the Steelers would make a ton of sense, as would the Packers in J.J.'s home state of Wisconsin. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go jump on the Tommy bandwagon. He could be the Ndamukong Suh replacement in Tampa Bay. And between Watt and Suh, I don't know. I don't know. Yes, Watt's going to sell a lot more jerseys than Suh. Not that you need to sell jerseys or tickets now that you have Tommy, but I think that if the Steelers and the Packers are out of the question, I'm intrigued by the fact that he could join the Buccaneers.
Okay, I like the fact that you're talking about Suh in that area, and I don't know who's better either, but I'll tell you what, playoff Suh is a monster, and he was kind of a monster in the Super Bowl too. So once Suh gets to that level, it's like, all right, I'm going to turn it on. The next pick I would go with is probably the Titans, and I'll say it because the Titans definitely need to improve their defense. Their defense was especially bad on third down. They allowed over 50% of third down conversions to be completed. And that is just something that you can't do if you want to be a real contending team. So if you want to get your pass rush better, yes, that could definitely happen with J.J. Watt, but also it would give him an opportunity to go against Houston 2 times a year. And I don't know how much J.J. Watt is a vengeful person, but if it's me, I don't know. I kind of would probably like to be able to see Houston 2 times a year and then kind of stick it to them a little bit. So I would say the Titans would be next on my list.
Yeah, Myles, I had the Titans on my list of teams too, simply because Mike Vrabel coached him, was the defensive coordinator in Houston for a while, and they were last in the NFL in sacks with 19, so that does make some sense there too. I'm going to go with the Ravens with my next pick, and he can reunite with former Texas defensive coordinator and defensive line coach Anthony Weaver. I think he likes playing for Anthony Weaver. They're in need of a pass rusher, as we know. Matthew Judon, Yannick Ngakoue are free agents. Derek Wolf's a free agent. They need some pass rush help. They seemingly have the cap room to get him there. He'd get to face his brothers twice a year. I don't know if he would like that part of it, Mike, but Baltimore sounds like a solid destination because they also have a chance perhaps to win immediately.
You know, PointsBet put together odds for the next destination of J.J. Watt, and some of the obvious teams we've discussed are on there. One team that wasn't even listed, though, the Indianapolis Colts, and that's going to be my next pick because if you're going to stay in the division, why not go to the team that feels like it's the most loaded? We don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but assuming they get somebody who is, befitting that great offensive line, already potent defense, he just makes a strong defense even better. He's at a point in his career where he, put him in a rotation. He doesn't have to be on the field all the time. He's going to stay healthier that way. But if you want a team that has routinely bedeviled the Houston Texans, it's the Indianapolis Colts. And if you want to stick it to the Texans the way Brett Favre wanted to stick it to the Packers, the Colts are the team to join.
They could be the team to join, but then I think there's probably, if you want to win, there could be some better options within the conference. And I will go with here the Buffalo Bills because they definitely need some help in terms of helping their run defense. They could use some help with another pass rusher as well. But then apparently Stephon Diggs is now going on the recruiting trail because just before I got on this call with you guys here, Stephon Diggs was tweeting at J.J. Watt saying, just hear me out real quick, big fellas. So I think if you want a contending team, look, this could be one to do it with. And I think if the the Bills want to be able to catch the Chiefs, right? Have talked about guys from their own organization. Brandon Beane did it. So there is definitely still a gap between where the Bills are right now and where the Chiefs are in the AFC. I think that J.J. Watt could be one piece on defense, a good veteran piece that can help you close that gap a little bit. Now, again, how much is he going to help you? All that much? I don't know based on what his performance could be, but I think it would be fun to see him on that Bills defense.
Myles, I'm going to go with the Seahawks with my last pick. They seem to love ex-Texans. They traded for Dwayne Brown and Jadeveon Clowney. They don't have to make a trade for J.J. Watt. They need a pass rush. They have no cap space, as we know. They would have to cut Carlos Dunlap probably to do that. That would free up $14 million. But, Mike, frankly, I'm not sure that J.J. Watt is an upgrade on Carlos Dunlap. So I'm not sure that's might be where he's headed. But if you're just throwing teams out there that have a need for pass rushes, if they could somehow figure out a way to fit him under the cap, I know they would like to add him.
Yeah, and you wonder if this is going to be the kind of move that will prompt Russell Wilson to go knock on John Schneider's door and say, hey, why don't we go get him? I want to be involved in personnel. This guy's available. Let's go get him. So that's a good thought, especially if they don't bring back Dunlap. Charean, I'm surprised because if I would have had to guess as to what your third pick was going to be, I would have thought, I mean, we played the sound earlier. What did J.J. Watt say? He's always going to be a Texas guy now. Well, there isn't a team in San Antonio yet. How do you not take the Dallas Cowboys? DeMarcus Lawrence has already been lobbying on Twitter for J.J. Watt to join the Cowboys, and that would be a way to maybe stick it to the Houston Texans. I'm staying in the state. I'm going a few hours down the road, and I am going to go play for the Dallas Cowboys. So I'll go ahead and make that my pick. Even though I'm surprised none of us picked the Chiefs, and let's have a conversation about the Chiefs after this, I think the Cowboys make a lot of sense. My concern, though, is the Cowboys have been paper champions for so long. I just wonder if J.J. Watt is convinced that he really is going to be within reaching distance of a championship by playing for the Cowboys. But let's. I want to get your thoughts on the Chiefs. I'll start with Myles. This is a team there that I think could use the help in the rotation. Yes, you've got Chris Jones, you've got Frank Clark, but a presence like J.J. Watt on a team that is going to be salty, a team that's going to be motivated, a team that has an incredibly good offense. If you could get J.J. Watt for a bargain basement price, how could you say no to that?
I would definitely not say no to that. And I think one of the interesting things about J.J. Watt's career at this point is he going to be a mercenary? Somebody like Chris Long, who toward the end of his career just started going places and winning rings, right? I mean, you saw Chris Long on the Patriots, and then Chris Long goes to the Eagles, and he's that pass rush specialist, but he really does make a difference. And I think when you can add somebody like that, who's a veteran presence, who has done so many good things, has over 100 sacks in his career, and you can add him to a team that is already pretty much championship ready, that can do nothing but help. I think he helps the locker room. He's already familiar with Tyrann Mathieu. They've been teammates. I just think that could be a really good fit if that's someplace where he wants to go and he wants to say, hey, I'm ring chasing at this point in my career.
And Myles, I'm surprised when I looked it up that he turns 32 in March. It seems like this guy's been around forever. But I think a place like Kansas City would really help him because he could be part of the rotation. He could play on third downs only. I think he played too many snaps for the Texans at where he is in his injury-plagued career. We know that. And Mike, when you look at it, he had 1 sack in the final 8 games for the Texans this year. I think he was used up. In the last 5 seasons, he has 26 and a half sacks, and that includes the 16 in 2018. He just hasn't been as dominant as he once was. We know that. He's missed 32 games over the past 5 seasons. I just think playing in a place like Kansas City would really benefit him from being in that rotation and not have to be the every down guy to get it done, down after down after down, play after play after play, Mike.
And we've talked so much this week about quarterbacks who are looking to engineer a destination, boost their legacy, get a championship. J.J. Watt doesn't have to ask for anything. No trade. He's already has his release. He can go wherever he wants. The question is, who is going to win? And PointsBet, as I mentioned earlier, put together the odds of the next destination for J.J. Watt. Let's take a look at that list. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, to no surprise, are the team at the top of the stack at plus 140, plus 150. It's moved a little bit. I think it was plus 140, although I may be misremembering. 140, 150, they know who we mean. Then we get Tampa Bay and Green Bay at plus 400. So they're on track with what we were thinking. Beyond that, we didn't mention the Bears. We didn't mention the Patriots. I don't know that New England would be a good fit for him after dealing with Bill O'Brien. The Rams, Myles, you've got familiarity with the Rams. Let's talk about that for a second. The Rams have been in that we'll go get anybody, we're all in, and they don't have draft picks to use, at least not in the first round. Could you see the Rams making a play for JJ?
Sure. I think it would be interesting, definitely, to add him to that front line. I mean, you get 6 Defensive Player of the Year awards, basically, between him and then Aaron Donald along that defensive front. Now, the Rams do have somebody like a Michael Brockers. They have Sebastian Joseph Day on that front line, but they also now are going to have to figure out what they're going to do at edge rusher. Leonard Floyd is a free agent for them coming up in March. So I think it definitely could be a fit. You think about Clay Matthews, who signed there in 2019. Eric Weddle signed there in 2019. So if you're looking at guys who are veterans, who are of that mold where I really want to come in there and win a championship, yeah, that definitely could work. And I think it would be kind of fearsome to have both Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt across that front line.
And Mike, I also had the Bears on my list, and I actually had them third and pivoted off of that. And the reason is his wife plays soccer for the Chicago Red Stars. And that just seemed, they've been up in Chicago. We saw a tweet not very long ago of him. It looked like he was in Chicago going out and getting pizzas. So they live up there part of the year. So that to me makes sense from that standpoint. But the reason I pivoted off of it is that's the last thing they need. They need to spend some money on the offensive side of the ball. They don't necessarily need another pass rusher. But to me, Chicago does make sense for J.J. Watt. It maybe doesn't make as much sense for the Bears.
And one of the realities of free agency, there's football sense and there's business sense. And bringing in J.J. Watt really does reflect a certain amount of business sense. He will sell jerseys. He will create buzz. He will be a great ambassador for the city. He'll make a connection with the city. And that's where you get into the back and forth that potentially arises when you're talking about what the owner wants and what the football operations wants. And it could be that maybe one of these teams that isn't a shortlist Super Bowl favorite throws the kind of money at JJ, Myles, that he just can't refuse.
Yeah, if there are teams like that, I would say two would be maybe the Raiders and then the Browns, because the Browns are supposed to have a lot of cap room. They are going to need somebody else opposite probably of Myles Garrett who can really generate that pass rush, and that's something that I think that they want to do, especially because Olivier Vernon is going to be coming off a major injury going into next year. But if you think about the Raiders too, I mean, they're in a place where they're trying so hard to catch Kansas City, and they desperately need to upgrade their defense. And I think if you think about J.J. Watt, he is of that mold where he's the football guy, just somebody that you're just sure that John Gruden would love to have around, and especially because he could maybe help bring up those young pass rushers like a Max Crosby, like a Cleveland Ferrell, who have kind of struggled on the outside, especially Ferrell. I mean, he's just not necessarily lived up to that billing of being a top 5 pick that you would expect. So I would not necessarily be surprised if they drop their hat into that ring, but Charean, I don't know how really interested J.J. Watt would be in any one of those teams.
Yeah, I had the Browns on my list too, Mike, simply because Olivier Vernon is leaving the team, and I think he would be a good influence for Myles Garrett. We know the Browns are interested in just about any free agent that comes on the market. I think he would help their defense, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.